The sun had barely risen when Lena stepped into the small bakery on the corner of Elm Street. It was a quiet place, tucked away from the bustle of the city, where the smell of freshly baked bread and sweet pastries filled the air. Lena had worked here for nearly a year, and she loved the calm rhythm of the mornings, just her, the baker, and the occasional regular who would come in for their morning coffee. That morning, however, as she was prepping the counter for the breakfast rush, she noticed something strange. Through the foggy glass window, she saw a small, scruffy dog huddled under a bush across the street. It looked cold and hungry, its fur matted, and its eyes wide with uncertainty. Lena's heart sank. She'd seen stray animals around here before, but this one seemed different, smaller, more fragile. Its eyes looked lost, and Lena could feel the sadness radiating from the little creature. She watched it for a moment, wondering if anyone would stop to help. But people were passing by without a second glance, too busy to notice. Lena's mind raced. She couldn't just ignore it. But she also knew there wasn't much she could do. The bakery was small, and they didn't have much leftover food. Yet, her heart was tugging her toward that little dog. When Mr. Harris, the bakery owner, came in from the back, Lena turned to him. "Mr. Harris, there's a dog outside. It looks like it could use some food," she said hesitantly. Mr. Harris didn't even look up from his paperwork. "We're not running a shelter here, Lena," he muttered. "Just focus on the orders." Lena felt her stomach tighten with frustration. He was right, of course. It was just a stray. But there was something in her that couldn't walk away. The dog was clearly starving, and she knew she had to do something. As the morning crowd started to trickle in, Lena made a quick decision. She grabbed a couple of leftover chicken bones and some meat scraps that had been left from the previous night's dinner. Wrapping them in a napkin, she was certain Mr. Harris wouldn't notice. Quietly, she slipped out the back door and crossed the street. The dog was still there, huddled under the bush, shivering in the cold. When Lena crouched down, it looked up at her with those big, brown eyes, its tail giving a hesitant wag. She held out the food. "Hey there, little one," she said softly. "I've got something for you." The dog sniffed the food cautiously before devouring it quickly. As if starving, Lena smiled, a warmth spreading through her chest. She stroked its fur gently, whispering, "You're going to be okay." Just as she was about to stand up, a voice called out from behind her. Lena's heart skipped a beat as Mr. Harris stormed over, his face red with irritation. The bakery, usually a calm, comforting place, suddenly felt stifling, as if the air had thickened with the tension between them. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Mr. Harris' voice boomed, startling a few customers who were sitting by the counter. Lena stood her ground, though her pulse raced. She had never seen him this angry before. "I'm helping. That dog was starving," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "It's just leftovers. What harm does it do to feed him?" Mr. Harris' nostrils flared. "What harm? It's against company policy. That's what harm. You don't feed strays. This is a business, Lena, not an animal shelter." "But it's just a meal," Lena fired back, her frustration building. "We throw away so much food every day. One plate of scraps won't change anything." That dog, he was desperate. "Desperate?" Mr. Harris scoffed, crossing his arms. "He's a stray. He'll move on. We're not here to take care of every dog that wanders by. It's bad enough we have to deal with all these homeless people loitering around. We're running a business here, not some charity." Lena felt her face flush with anger. That dog wasn't loitering. He was hungry. "I'm just doing what's right." "Mr. Harris, doing what's right?" His voice rose. "You're breaking the rules, and now you've made a spectacle out of it. Do you think the customers like seeing a stray dog hanging around while they eat? Do you think this is acceptable?" Lena's breath quickened, her temper flaring. "I'm not going to apologize for feeding a hungry animal," she said, her voice shaky but firm. "Maybe it's you who needs to take a step back and rethink what's important here." Mr. Harris' face twisted with anger, his jaw tightening. "Enough," he shouted, causing a few of the customers to glance nervously between them. "You're fired. I've had enough of your insubordination." Lena's stomach dropped. "What? You can't be serious." "I'm dead serious," he snapped, pointing toward the door. "Collect your things and leave. Don't come back." For a moment, Lena just stood there, stunned, as if the world had stopped spinning. Her mind raced as she tried to process what had just happened. Fired, overfeeding a dog. She glanced at the golden retriever. who was sitting quietly by the door, tail wagging softly, completely unaware of the chaos unfolding around him. "I can't believe this," she whispered under her breath. But she didn't argue. With a heavy heart, she walked toward the back of the bakery to gather her things, feeling the sting of defeat wash over her. When she returned to the front, the dog was still there, looking up at her with those sad, trusting eyes. She knelt down to scratch behind his ears one last time. "I'll be okay," Lena whispered, more to herself than to the dog. "We'll both be okay." Lena walked out of the bakery with her head held high, though the knot in her stomach refused to loosen. The golden retriever trotted beside her, his tail wagging as if he didn't have a care in the world. It was as if the weight of the world had fallen on Lena's shoulders. But somehow, the little dog seemed to make it feel lighter. She didn't know where she was headed, but she couldn't just leave him there, abandoned once again. So, she made a decision. The dog needed her, and in some strange way, maybe she needed him too. She'd figure things out. She always did. Lena took him to the small, cozy apartment she rented, where she'd lived alone for years. She opened the door, and the dog immediately scampered in, sniffing the air, his nose twitching as he explored his new surroundings. He was hesitant at first but quickly settled in, curling up on the small rug in the living room. Lena sat down next to him, running her fingers through his soft, matted fur. "Well," she sighed, "I guess it's just you and me now." "Huh?" The dog looked up at her, as if he understood every word. His brown eyes were full of trust. And it was then that Lena realized she'd made the right choice. She couldn't let him down. The days that followed were a blur of routines. Lena found a part-time job at a local bookstore, shelving books and helping customers. It wasn't much, but it was something. It paid the bills, and she liked the quiet, calming atmosphere. It was better than nothing, at least for now. Meanwhile, the dog, whom she'd named Buddy, became her constant companion. He followed her everywhere, curling up at her feet while she worked, playing fetch in the park when she had time off, and sitting by her side during those quiet evenings when the world felt too big. But even as things started to fall into place, Lena couldn't shake the feeling that she was meant for something more. She wasn't content just scraping by. She had a purpose, and she needed to find it. One morning, after a long shift at the bookstore, Lena was walking Buddy through the park when she spotted a sign outside a small animal rescue center. It was a simple flyer, with the words, "Help Wanted, Animal Caretaker," written in bold letters. Her heart skipped a beat. Without hesitation, she dialed the number on the flyer, her fingers trembling with excitement. "Hello, is this the Evergreen Animal Rescue?" "Yes, it is," a warm voice answered. "How can I help you?" "I saw your flyer for an animal caretaker position," Lena said, her voice a little shaky but determined. "I'd love to apply." The woman on the other end paused for a moment. "You're looking to work with animals?" "Yes," Lena said, her voice growing stronger. "I'm passionate about animals. I have a lot of experience caring for dogs. And I just feel like this is something I'm meant to do." "Well, we're always looking for good people," the woman said with a smile in her voice. "Why don't you come by tomorrow for an interview?" Lena couldn't believe it. She had a chance. It wasn't a big break, but it was a step forward. Maybe, just maybe, things were starting to turn around. The next morning, she walked into the Evergreen Animal Rescue, her heart racing with anticipation. Buddy trotted along beside her, his tail wagging excitedly as if he knew this was something important. She was greeted by a friendly woman named Claire, who led her through the spacious facility. The place was alive with barking dogs and meowing cats, all waiting for their forever homes. It was chaotic but somehow peaceful, like a world that was both in motion and in harmony. After a quick interview, Claire smiled warmly. "You're hired, Lena," she said, her eyes glinting with approval. "We could really use someone with your heart." Lena's heart soared. She had done it. She had found a new purpose. And as Buddy nudged her leg, she knew that this was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Lena settled into her new role at Evergreen Animal Rescue with surprising ease. Every day brought something different. Some days were spent cleaning kennels and playing with puppies, while others were dedicated to helping injured animals recover. But no matter the task, Lena found herself deeply fulfilled in ways she never imagined possible. The work was hard, and there were moments when she felt physically exhausted. But the joy of seeing an animal go from frightened and alone to happy and adopted made everything worth it. Buddy, her faithful golden retriever, seemed to thrive in the environment as well. At first, he was a little unsure about the other dogs in the shelter, especially when they were too energetic for his liking. But over time, he warmed up to the idea of being around so many other animals, especially when he realized they weren't so different from him. He even became a sort of unofficial greeter for the new arrivals, wagging his tail and offering them his silent support as they adjusted to their new home. Lena had made several close friends at the rescue, including Claire, the friendly woman who had interviewed her. Claire had become a mentor to Lena, teaching her the ins and outs of animal rehabilitation. Every time a dog was adopted or an animal showed signs of improvement, Claire would pull Lena aside and say, "This is why we do this." One afternoon, as Lena was walking through the park with Buddy after work, she found herself thinking about everything she had been through in the last few months. It felt like a lifetime ago that she had been fired from the bakery, humiliated by her manager, and uncertain about her future. Now, she had a steady job, a newfound sense of purpose, and a loyal companion by her side. She couldn't help but smile at how far she had come. But there were still some loose ends to tie up. Lena knew she couldn't stay in the small apartment forever, especially with Buddy growing bigger and needing more space. And though she had a job she loved, it didn't pay nearly enough for her to afford a house or even a larger apartment. She still had to be careful with her spending. And every day, she worried that something might happen to throw everything off track. One evening, after another long day of work, Lena sat down on the couch. Buddy curled up beside her, and she turned on the TV. As she flipped through the channels, an ad caught her eye. It was for a fundraising event to help local animal shelters raise money for the care of abandoned and abused animals. The event was organized by a local celebrity, a well-known philanthropist who was known for her charitable work with animals. Lena's mind raced. Could this be an opportunity? She had always dreamed of getting involved with something larger, something that could make a bigger difference. She could offer her experience, her passion, and maybe even find some financial support to help with the things she still struggled with, like finding a better place to live. She had no idea how she would be able to pull it off. But the idea of helping more animals, of making a difference on a larger scale, was irresistible. Without thinking twice, she picked up the phone and dialed the number listed in the ad. "Hello?" the voice on the other end answered. "Hi, my name is Lena," she said, her voice shaking slightly with excitement. "I'm with Evergreen Animal Rescue, and I saw your ad for the fundraising event. I was wondering if there's any way I could get involved. I've been working with animals for a while, and I'd love to help with the event, whether that's by volunteering or offering my experience in animal care." There was a brief silence on the other end, followed by a warm response. "That's exactly the kind of help we need. I'd love to have you involved. Can you come down to our office tomorrow to discuss how you can contribute?" Lena's heart leapt. This was her chance. She agreed immediately, making a mental note to wear something professional but comfortable. Tomorrow was going to be a big day. As she hung up the phone, Lena looked down at Buddy, who was still curled up beside her, looking up at her with those soulful eyes. "Well, Buddy," she said, "it looks like we're about to get even busier. But it's all worth it, right?" Buddy let out a soft bark, his tail thumping against the couch as if to say, "I'm with you." And with that, Lena knew that no matter where life took her, no matter the challenges ahead, she and Buddy would face them together. They were a team, and together, they could do anything. Lena couldn't help but feel her heart swell with warmth as she watched the dogs at the shelter. Every day, their playful antics and endearing behaviors brought a smile to her face. Despite the busyness of her work at the Animal Rescue Center, she found joy in capturing the precious moments of the dogs' lives. Soon, Lena began sharing short videos of these adorable moments on social media. Whether it was a dog rolling around happily or a puppy staring at the camera with soulful eyes, the posts gained a lot of attention. One video, in particular, of Buddy, a golden retriever Lena had saved, stood out. His big, sad eyes seemed to tell a story of hardship, but there was also a spark of hope in them as he played with the other dogs. Lena never imagined these videos would lead to something life-changing. But one day, as she was scrolling through the comments, her phone rang. An unknown number. She hesitated but answered anyway. "Hello, This is John. I'm the owner of the dog in the video you posted. I can't believe I found him. Can you tell me more about him?" The voice on the other end was shaky but full of emotion. Lena froze, her heart racing. "Wait, you're talking about Buddy, right? The golden retriever I found a few weeks ago? He was hungry and tired, but so sweet." John sighed in relief. "Yes, that's him. We've been looking for him for 3 years. He ran off during a walk and we searched everywhere. I had given up hope. But when I saw your video, I knew immediately it was him. Thank you so much for taking care of him." Lena felt overwhelmed. She had grown so attached to Buddy, and now, hearing from his owner, it felt surreal. She couldn't help but smile through the phone. "Wow, I can't believe you found him. It feels like fate," Lena said softly. "I'm just glad he's back where he belongs." John's voice softened. "Thank you again. I've been preparing everything to bring Buddy back home. Before I do, I want to personally thank you. Without you, I don't know what would have happened to him." Lena smiled, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. "I'm just happy Buddy is going back to his family. I wish you both all the happiness." The conversation ended, but Lena couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just taken another unexpected turn. The little act of kindness she'd shown to a lost dog had now led to the reunion of Buddy with his rightful owner. The days following the phone call with Buddy's owner were filled with mixed emotions for Lena. She was happy for the reunion, but a deep sadness also lingered in her heart. Over the past 3 years, Buddy had become much more than just a dog she had rescued. He had become her companion, her friend. The bond they had formed was unexpected, but undeniable. She had never imagined she would grow so attached to him. His gentle nature, the way his eyes seemed to understand her without a word, and the comfort he brought to her heart in the darkest of moments made it nearly impossible to picture life without him. Lena had gotten used to his presence, the way he would follow her around the house, curl up next to her while she worked, and even rest his head on her lap when she felt down. The day Buddy's owner, John, was scheduled to pick him up felt like it came too soon. Lena had hoped for more time, but as the date drew near, she realized there was no avoiding the fact that Buddy had a family to return to. She had promised she would care for him, but she had also promised herself that she would do what was best for Buddy. On the morning of the pickup, Lena woke up early, her heart heavy. She spent the last few moments with Buddy, holding him close and whispering softly, "You know, Buddy, I'm really going to miss you," she said, scratching behind his ears. Buddy looked up at her with his big brown eyes, his tail wagging softly, as if he knew what was coming. His presence had brought so much light into her life. And now, she had to let him go. When the doorbell rang that afternoon, Lena felt her stomach tighten. She opened the door to find John standing there, smiling warmly but with a hint of sadness in his eyes. He extended his hand, holding Buddy's leash. "Hi, Lena," he said. "I just wanted to thank you again for everything. You have no idea how much it means to us that you took care of Buddy for all these years." Lena smiled faintly, blinking back the tears threatening to spill. "I'm just happy he's going back home where he belongs. I really wish I could have kept him longer, but I know he needs to be with you." John nodded. "He's part of our family. We've been looking for him for 3 years now, and we never gave up. You've done more for him than I can ever express." Lena crouched down, reaching out to Buddy one last time. She gave him a long, gentle hug. "Take care of him, please," she whispered. "He's truly special." Buddy gave one final glance back at Lena, as if he understood that he was about to leave her. He stood hesitantly for a moment, then walked over to John, who knelt down to attach the leash. The dog's tail wagged slowly, but he seemed unsure. With a last affectionate look from Buddy, John stood up and gently led him out the door. Lena watched them walk away, her heart heavy. She had kept her promise to return Buddy to his rightful owner. But it didn't make the goodbye any easier. After the farewell, life seemed to move on. But for Lena, things were never quite the same. The day Buddy left her, a piece of her heart went with him. However, what happened next changed the course of her life in ways she hadn't expected. John, the man who had come to pick Buddy up, was not just an ordinary man. As it turned out, he was a successful businessman with a deep passion for animal welfare. He had made significant investments into various animal rescue foundations over the years. And his most notable investment was in the Evergreen Animal Rescue. the very same organization where Lena had once volunteered. Lena found out about John's involvement in the foundation during one of their conversations before Buddy was taken home. John had been curious about how she'd managed to keep Buddy happy and healthy all these years. And Lena had mentioned her desire to work with animals full-time. He listened intently and shared some of his experience, even offering a few tips on how to improve rescue efforts. When she mentioned her own small pet care business that she had started recently, he was impressed. "You got a real gift, Lena," John had said. "You should think about expanding more. There's a lot of people who would love what you do." What Lena didn't know was that John's business acumen and financial backing were the very thing that would help her take her work to the next level. A few weeks later, she received a call from a representative of the Evergreen Animal Rescue Foundation. They wanted to partner with her to expand her pet care services into a full-fledged program, combining rescue operations and training facilities. John had invested heavily in their cause, and seeing Lena's dedication and natural connection with the animals, he believed she was the perfect person to help lead this new initiative. At first, Lena was hesitant, unsure of whether she was ready for such a big leap. But John's encouragement and the promise of helping more animals finally persuaded her. With his help, Lena's business began to grow. She opened a larger facility, hired a small team, and started offering more services, from pet rehabilitation to adoption programs. Her social media following grew rapidly as well, with videos of her rescue efforts and the dogs she helped going viral. More and more people started reaching out to her for advice, services, and even to adopt animals from her programs. Soon, she was known as one of the most compassionate and successful animal caregivers in the city. And her reputation spread beyond just the local area. She was featured in several interviews, including a popular news segment that showcased her work and her commitment to animal welfare. Her business flourished, and with John's ongoing support, Lena was able to continue making a difference, not just for Buddy, but for hundreds of other animals in need. The best part of it all? She never lost the bond she had with Buddy. Despite him returning to his original family, Lena continued to visit him regularly. He had found his home, but she had found her purpose.